Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much and welcome everyone. As Desi mentioned, my name is Maurice Mugabowindekwe from University of Copenhagen, Department of Geoscience and Natural Resource Management. Yeah, this work is under the supervision of Martin Brand and Rasmus Fensvold. And today I'll present on nationwide mapping and the characterization of individual trees. So basically, my focus and my PhD is on the whole East Africa. So basically, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Burundi. But currently, my starting point was Rwanda. So it's a small country in East Africa, as you can see. But yeah, so my presentation has two parts. The first part is about mapping of individual trees, where we'll talk about the reason why and the methods we've applied, and how we mapped the trees and how we dealt with the clumped trees or the connected trees after the the mapping. And the second part is about characterizing the trees. And we've started with the biomass estimation for every tree and also carbon stock. But the last part is the plan, where we intend to integrate both deep learning and radiative transfer modeling for further characterizing the trees. So the reason to do that is because currently there are many underestimation of trees outside of forest. So this photo or image on top right is from Martin Brand and the team, where in 2020 they mapped about 1.8 billion trees in Sahel, where was where it was used to be believed that there were no trees. So, and because they mapped using sub-meter resolution images, but the current, most of the global tree cover products, they use a bit of medium to coarse resolution products, which is why they miss a lot of trees. So therefore, there is an error propagation in these maps with high level of inaccuracies to the decisions where they are used. For instance, most of these products are used for global forest watch and in many of commitments, the global or continental or region ones. So therefore, there is a need for a framework for monitoring and reporting and verifications for tree-dominated ecosystems. And this also is because there is a lot of investments into ecosystem restoration. Like in Africa, we have FR100, an initiative which is encouraging many African countries to restore about 100 million hectares by 2030. And main activities in this is planting trees. So we need a mechanism to monitor all of those trees. Where are they planted? How many survived? And all of those. So luckily, the advance in technology allows us large-scale mapping of individual trees. And the image in the lower right is a snippet in a rainforest. So if we show it like that, no one may believe that it's a rainforest, but actually inside the rainforest, there are some dead trees. And because we know that rainforest is, closed canopy and everything, but if we look inside at individual tree level, we start to uncover some patterns which matter for ecosystem management and restoration. So what we did is we hand labeled some trees. So we delineated manually the tree crowns, and then we used 25 centimeter resolution aerial photographs from 2008. And then we developed an automated workflow where we use a unit to predict the trees and the tree crowns. And then we developed another framework to separate the clumped trees after the mapping. And we estimate, or we have now the area of the crown, the diameter, and the density. And also we estimate the carbon using different allometric equations, which I will talk a little bit in a minute. And then for the rainforest, of course, because we have a lot of overlapping layers, only emergent and canopy layers are mapped, which means the understory trees are missed. But we did a field work to make sure that we know the amount of trees we are missing because they are understory vegetation. So this is just a glimpse of what it looks like. So we had about 97,000 manually delineated tree crowns in all ecosystems, so including urban areas, agroforestry, uh, the rainforest. This one is the tropical montane rainforest, which is available in southwestern Rwanda. And then we have also pasture, savannah and shrublands, and agroforestry or farmlands, among others. So, and this is the method we've applied after we have predicted the tree. So it's already available. We have uploaded it on GitHub. We developed two approaches, but we went with one. So one is erosion based for image processing, but another one is at center based. And we use this one on top right, where the algorithm assumes that all trees should be round. So the crown has a circular shape, and then it determines a centroid. And then it starts looking at a certain distance, depending on the points far or near to that centroid, it attributes them to the same tree. And then if they are out of sight, then it looks at a new centroid. And that's how we manage to cut the trees, because in this rainforest, some trees may be connected with maybe 1 pixel, and then when you click on one tree, you realize that actually there are like 40 or 50 trees connected, 1 pixel, 1 pixel. So it was an issue, because to estimate the carbon, because the equations are exponential, they are, some are quadratic, others, so they are not linear, and others are logarithmic. So the inaccuracy becomes enormous when you don't handle the individual trees separation correctly. So these are the results, and here is an example of a different tree density we have, and this is just an example of how we, here on top right, this is an example in pasture in savannah and shrublands, and this is a characterise plantation forest, and then we have farmlands, and then we have another example in the lower left corner in a rainforest. This is another example, as I might have mentioned earlier, or maybe I forgot. The paper is the manuscript is under review, and we detected about 360, 57 million individual trees in Rwanda in the year 2008, and this is before the country has made commitments of like Bond Challenge, which started a little later, and then others which added a few more trees. But one of the reasons we've selected Rwanda is because it's a country which spans most of the ecosystems that you can find in Africa, from rainforest to shrubland and drylands and many others. So we covered these natural forests, savanna and shrubland, eucalyptus plantations, other plantations, farmland, and urban areas. And we claim that this is the first country scale mapping of individual forest and non-forest trees and shrubs. Yeah. So this is another indication, or one of the examples of tree density mapping, where we compare the existing tree cover map global from Hansen and the team from University of Maryland, and then we, because they don't map anything which is below by 30 by 30 meter, because they use Landsat, so that's about 900 square meters. But here we find more trees, because uh, they apparently in Rwanda we found many more young trees. So if we use a bit of medium to coarse resolution satellite products, they miss a lot. And so that's our top right is our product, and then the center top uh, is the existing global tree cover. And here we have an example on our left, lower left, the tropical mountain rainforest. Again, how in the end we mapped every individual tree, and then we have a eucalyptus plantation, and then farmland, and then another plantation example. So as a summary, this is how our results look like. So from the 357 million trees we mapped, about 11% only are in natural forest. And here, our natural forest is mainly in protected areas. And the savannah and shrubland account for about 35%, and then eucalyptus plantation about 13%, non-eucalyptus plantation about 2%. Surprisingly, farmland, they account for about 37% of all trees. And here in farmlands, we excluded the plantation. So if we have a plantation in the middle of a farmland, but it's large, so we exclude it and then we attribute it to either eucalyptus plantation or non-eucalyptus plantation, depending on the dominant species. So which means that these 37%, they are individual trees, not in a plantation or in a forest. And when I mean a plantation, I mean a patch of planted trees, not one individually planted tree. So which are normally missed in the mapping. And the urban areas account for about 1.3%. Surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the 11% of trees in natural forest account for more than 58% of the entire carbon stock of the country. So, and this has a lot of meaning because the plantations, although they dominate, but actually they are cut quite often. So, and when they are cut, they release the carbon depending on what they do with the wood. And then the natural forest is protected. Therefore, it contains the carbon for longer term. And this is just an example of a few images we took during the fieldwork because um, in some of the plantations on top, sorry, on the bottom left, and then on the right, one of the mango tree. It's a planted fruit tree. So yeah, this is about how we mapped the trees and how we counted them. So the next part, we'll be talking about how we want to characterize these trees. But I have already talked a bit about this. So basically what we did is we went on the field and then we collected some data set, but we also used some existing global tree measurement database from some of the publications. And then we applied the allometric equations to relate tree measurements like the diameter. Especially, we wanted to develop an equation which takes into account our uh, data. So because here we are mapping the crown, so then what we can get from our mapped tree crowns are the tree diameter. So we wanted an equation which would estimate the biomass based on the tree crown diameter. And we needed uh, a few calibration to do that. So during the field, we measured the height, the diameter at the breast height, crown diameter, species, and all of those. And yeah, I think this one I've already mentioned. And here are just other examples of the trees from the farmland, from the forest, the natural forest in the lower right corner. And this is an example of how the crown diameter relates to the diameter at the breast height. And this is because most of the allometric equations take into account the diameter, but from the top, when we are using the satellite product or aerial photographs, we don't see a diameter of a tree. We only see its crown, but you can see that it's actually related. So therefore, we can predict the diameter of a tree based on its crown measurements and use the predicted diameter to estimate its biomass. And then after that, we use the carbon conversion factor, biomass to carbon conversion factor, which is usually about 0.47% according to the IPCC 2006 guidelines to estimate the carbon stock. So after that, we got a nationwide individual tree carbon stock. So every tree that we've mapped now has its carbon associated with it. And so that's how basically we mapped both the trees and the carbon. And then we validated our data against the existing global products, but also the National Forest Inventory. So the National Forest Inventory is not available in natural forests, and therefore in a natural forest, we used some of the trees that were measured by researchers. There are about 6,000 of those in 15 plots. And we are still pretty close. So only we realize that existing global products overestimate the biomass and the carbon stock outside natural forest, while inside natural forest they somehow underestimate, but they do pretty well compared to outside. And this might have been caused by other issues that I might not discuss. But yeah, that's how we characterized every tree by its biomass and carbon stock. So now the next plan is about using RTMs to even characterize our trees for some of the biochemical variables like leaf, chlorophyll content, and also the crown or the canopy, a nitrogen content. And here it's just a glimpse of the ideas of what we know that we will need. For instance, we will need the some of like the tree structure, spectral signature, leaf area, angle distribution, and all of these, mainly which can some of these. Most of them can be obtained from the LiDAR. We have LiDAR measurements, but they are from airborne, which is also a bit coarse, and so we are thinking about trying to see if we can get the hyperspectral data, also the LiDAR measurements, of course, and also coupled with the hyperspectral data so that we can simulate the data we are using now. That we want to go large scale, then we will use planet data, which we already have. And then we are also thinking of using 3D RTM like that, and then we can build a lookup table so that we can link our like yeah the normal estimation of the traits from the trees, looking into the simulation from the lookup table. So this is just an example from a team that we're working on a similar project in a protected area. And yeah, this is just an example of a 3D RTM model where they were building a lookup table, and then where you can see a tree with a chlorophyll of about 5, about 20, about 60, and AI of about zero point 0.6, and so on. How is it looking? And then we also try to relate these trees to the trees that we've mapped already. And we know that we will need LAI estimates, which we can get from the LiDAR data. Also, the chlorophyll estimates, which also can be retrieved by different methods, either in situ measurements or uh, lab measurements, which require different. So we still have to figure out which is the best option for us. And then also we will need, of course, the tree dimensions, which we can get from the LiDAR measurements. Yeah, or we can estimate, of course, as I already mentioned earlier. So that's what I had to present in a brief, and that's what we've done so far. Mapping of all trees in Rwanda, about 356 million of them. We mapped the tree crowns, and then we got the tree crowns dimension, and then we estimated the diameter of a tree, and then from the diameter we could estimate the related biomass, and then we got the carbon from the biomass, and now we want to estimate the canopy nitrogen content, the leaf chlorophyll content, and a few other possible variables that we can get, but that's still the plan. And so the paper for the first part, the manuscript, is still under review, and we hope maybe we can get reviews back sometime soon. But that's in a brief what we've done and what we plan to do in this regard. So thank you very much for your attention.